Right, so today we are going to review what vulnerability management is, talk about the cybersecurity landscape, and really discuss why your business could benefit from this tool. Our speakers today are Eric Stemmel. He's our VP of Client Success, and myself, Rebecca Altmar. I am a technical trainer and marketing specialist here at TED. So, Eric, I will turn it over to you.
All right. Thanks, Rebecca. All right. So there's tons of incidents occurring all over the planet, as we all know. SMBs, which is most of our client marketplace, are not immune. 48% of SMBs are experiencing a breach or have experienced a breach. The United States, 73% of small businesses are reporting being attacked. Those are the ones that are reporting. Lots of folks don't even report that they've been attacked. So it's a constant issue, and 90% of the global breaches occur in the SMB space. So when we consider SMB, you could be a $100 million company. We consider a small business based on your seats. So if you're 200 seats and under, you're kind of a small business when it comes to what we think, but you could still be a multi-$100 million company. We think of it in a frame of seats. So patching vulnerabilities, unpatched vulnerabilities, 60% of the cyber compromises are caused by unpatched vulnerabilities. So basically, if you've got software running that's older, that hasn't been updated, there are compromises in there that need to be updated. The problem is you may not even know they're there. There's examples of even password management companies that have been breached because of the engineer that was working remotely hadn't updated his Plex server in his home. The bad guys got in through the Plex server's vulnerability, got to LastPass, and then eventually get on the network. So patching your vulnerabilities has to be a constant thing, and it's a big problem because software. Gosh, if the old line is if software engineers made buildings, none of our buildings would stand. There's tons of vulnerabilities and problems with software that need to be updated and patched, and the bad guys know the vulnerabilities that are out there. Critical vulnerabilities, 32% of critical vulnerabilities remain unpatched for over 180 days. Common issue, right? Who wants to do this patching? Who wants to do all this updating? Who even knows what they've got in their organization to even patch it? So you could have, again, a third-party software sitting there, some software that's running your HVAC system. Is it patched? I don't know. Bad guys are going to check and try to get in via that. Malware exploits, 70% of malware. They're looking for known vulnerabilities. The bad guys are writing the software, the malware software, to exploit what they know is a vulnerability in software you might have if you haven't patched it. So it's out there. You click on the link. The software says, "Oh, I see you've got this old Adobe you haven't patched. I'm going to go in and get you through that." That's what they do. And now with AI, script kiddies out there, they could actually subscribe to this malware and send out emails and then ransom your system. So you can't ignore this problem anymore. It has to be something you tackle and manage. And it's a big problem, and there's lots of software. So we have to be on top of this. Simply, vulnerability management is a process that aims to identify, again, what software you've got across your entire organization, evaluate what is the critical levels of the vulnerabilities that are out there, and then, of course, mitigate them by treating them, patching them, and then, of course, report on the vulnerabilities so that you actually are showing evidence that you're trying to pay attention to these things. Especially with compliance, you have to first show where you are and how many patches need to happen, your critical patches, your standard patches, and what have you. And then, are you doing the patches? Have you remediated them? You have to show that evidence as part of your compliance journey for CMMC or NIST. So we can help to proactively mitigate these risks by establishing a systematic approach using the PatrolDOG vulnerability management tool that can actually apply these patches in a systematic way. You just can't do it haphazard anymore. So step one, asset discovery. So most of our clients already have PatrolDOG on their systems. It's a basic RMM tool that's going to help with asset discovery. Uh, this tool will go on top as well then and discover, when it comes to assets, the software that's on those assets. They're going to also assess, basically the vulnerability assessment is going to go ahead and take a look at, okay, of the software you have, how many of these softwares have critical vulnerabilities, the standard vulnerabilities, the ones that can wait. Um, let's get that whole list together. Now we're going to prioritize the critical ones first, obviously. Let's get out there and get those patched as fast as we can, because anything 0-day that's really critical needs to be taken care of right away. The other ones can wait in some cases, depending on the level of criticality. And there's a whole process that software folks use and third parties use to try to um, identify the level of security that you should be paying attention to the patches. So if you have an old Exchange 2013 server that you haven't patched, the Chinese are probably on it right now, because there's vulnerabilities out there that have been going on forever. Just as an example, remediation, obviously, we're going to update that software. We're going to have to put you on a schedule to have those patches, of course, the critical ones first, applied to your system so that it can be protected. There's a process that we go about doing this where we try to schedule kind of a guinea pig group to have the first patches applied, see if it breaks anything. Because guess what? Sometimes the medicine is worse than the problem. You can apply a patch to your system, and all of a sudden, the software you were working with no longer works. So that's why a lot of people don't apply patches. They don't want to find that they've updated it and it breaks. But we have to perform the remediation. You have to take the medicine. We would do it in phases so that you roll it out to a key few. If they're not complaining, then you roll it out to the rest. And then, of course, continuously monitor. You just can't set it, you just can't patch it once and then come back 30 days or 160 days or however long you want to do it later. You have to constantly watch, because the software companies don't even know if they have a hole somewhere. Some of these 0-day vulnerabilities are just discovered because the hackers are pounding on the software trying to figure out ways to get in. So a critical vulnerability, it could exist right now in Adobe, and you don't know it until the bad guys find it. And then systems like ours will cooperate and say, oh, okay, the bad guys found this vulnerability. Let's patch it. It's critical. You just can't set it and forget it. So like I said, we're going to create a patching schedule. We're going to work with you to determine the patching schedule that works. You can't patch the machine if it's not on. Just that step to make sure you have your people leave the computer on, so that it can be applied and be updated while based on that schedule that is set. And again, I mentioned the ring groups. So we're going to try to work with our customers to say, okay, who are the volunteers to be the guinea pigs that would be okay with having their systems not work should the patch break something or break some sort of integration that can occur. The moment you patch some software A, some software B integration may not work. So now you got to upgrade software B or work with support to figure out what the problem is with the new version of the software. A lot of the reasons people wait on upgrading operating systems from 10 to 11, let's say, or from 7 to 10, what's not going to work? Well, this is hopefully patching within the software that already works, but things can happen. And this is one of those things where if you ignore it, the worst case is the bad guys are in and doing much worse things to your systems than having the folks that are having our patch tool actually protect you. So it's a necessary evil that really we have to take seriously, because too many companies are getting impacted by unpatched software. And it has to be corrected. So only 29% of organizations automate their patching. That's really very few, and it explains a lot as to the issues that are out there. When you hear all the ransomware attacks that are out there, you hear all the systems that are impacted. They're impacted because typically it's vulnerabilities. After your employee clicks on the attachment, the malware goes out and sees, oh, you've got this old version of such and such software. I'm going to go ahead and exploit that vulnerability that you could have patched 2 years ago, and get into your system. Completely avoidable. If it's like, again, if you don't wear the seatbelt, don't ask yourself why you're on the hood of the car when you have an accident. It's obvious stuff here. Let's get patched and get protected. So there's basically here's an example dashboard. So this company has about 140 seats, as it were, and you can see as of when we ran this before we prepared this lunch and learn, there's 10 overdue critical patches. Why is that? Why is that even out there, Eric? Why is there still 10 overdue patches? Well, because those machines are off probably. They're just not on. They haven't been able to be touched or patched during this specific window. Then you've got 115 high. One software can produce multiple vulnerabilities that need to be touched. So these numbers can go from thousands down to hundreds once the patch is applied, depending on the software you have. Medium is at 86 and low is at 4. So you can see, in this case, this company is in pretty good shape. No company will ever be perfect, ever. But you need to try to get your software patched on a regular basis so you're not finding thousands of vulnerabilities. We run some reports on clients, and thousands of vulnerabilities exist that have to be patched, and they've been just kind of lucky. So again, your cybersecurity tools that you have in place with us already are prophylactically helping, right? So if you have our EDR technologies, our MDR technologies, our web defense technologies, our email defense technologies, your backup technologies, those are all there to prophylactically deal with a breach. This is going to be there to prevent it in the first place because they can't leverage the vulnerability that's existing if you've patched it. So you're going to get it from both sides, both prophylactically when you have the software that's there to monitor, and then of course proactively because you're patching the system to prevent the bad guys from using the vulnerability in the first place. But if you have one machine, there's still an opening. So that's why you need those other technologies in place to deal with that fact, because there's no company that can ever promise you 100% patching. So again, you talk about your SLAs on what the expectation would be. You'd want to have your critical patches taken care of in that 1 to 7 days, important patches in 15, moderate in 30. And again, we would configure the PatrolDOG vulnerability scanning system to do these things. But we have to work with you as a customer to say, okay, so Bob, when can we allow our software to do its job? Because it's going to do its job. It's going to impact your people. We've all been impacted by Windows needing to do an update, me included. And it's never at the good time, ever. So we have to plan for that schedule. What's the best time to do it? Well, again, we'll do the first group, those folks that we think will be less impacted or be able to deal with any impacts that occur. Then you release it to the remaining folks. Software is getting better these days, so that the old days of you patch it and it breaks and nothing works is less of an issue, but it's not an issue. So it's something that has to be dealt with. But you got to leave your machines on. So the patching window is open for, let's say, 2 to 4 hours, depending on from 2 o'clock on a Thursday. If the machines are on, it'll do the patching. If they're not on, they're missed. And they will have to be gotten at the next patching window, which could be 1 to 7 days down the line, the next Thursday between 2 and 4. So now those critical patches are coming up in that SLA. If we'd like to get those done in 1 to 7 days, it's already a week away. Oh, she's on a 2-week vacation. Guess what? That laptop is not going to get fixed or patched. So it's going to move over. But you'll be able to see as a customer what you're getting as far as that patching, how it's going, and you'll be able to see again how many patches you started with, how many vulnerabilities you started with, excuse me, and where you're ending up with. And again, if you're part of a compliance requirement like CMMC or NIST, you must do this. And then you have to have evidence that you're doing it. So our reporting will let you capture that evidence so that if an auditor comes in, you can prove to them that you have a regularly scheduled and maintained and monitored patching system that's in place for you, which is a very important aspect of compliance. So that's what's going on here on this slide. And here are the endpoints. So basically, because we use asset tags, we know your machines by ATN number, and you'll have the user information, whether they're disconnected or not, if they have any critical or non-critical. You can actually see this down in a granular way. You can see which software hasn't been updated, in this case, Windows 10 for that first line, or Windows 11. You have some overdue patches in this instance. The net extender hasn't been updated since April in this case, right? So these are the kind of issues. Is the machine off? Is it not on? Is it missing the patching window? This is where the management comes in. Our MSP teams will then contact you and say, hey, we really got to get this remediated. You got a critical patching out there that has to get taken care of. So our folks will contact you and say, hey, we've been trying to get these done. we're finding these critical issues outstanding. We need to take care of them. Otherwise, you leave yourself wide open. But this is down to a very granular level, so you'll be able to see the device and the software, and then make decisions. Again, an example of Adobe could have lots of critical patches as part of that one version you happen to have. It could represent, 4 computers running an old copy of Adobe could represent, 800 vulnerabilities. Once you patch them, boom, all taken care of. So the CVE is how they're measured it's an organization that kind of measures or reports on the critical vulnerabilities that are out there. They get a score. So obviously the benefits of having something automated and part of your security stack. We're going to be able to remediate Windows OS vulnerabilities, obviously. Microsoft does a good job too, but it'll be done across all your systems. Real-time vulnerability assessments, you'll be able to constantly know what you have for software. Somebody could load some who knows what software on your system. We'll know about it, and we'll know if it needs to be patched, no matter when it's loaded and added. And of course, government compliance. So if you are in the compliance world, that SPAR score has a component here of vulnerability management as far as getting that number. You can't just guess the number of your SPAR score. You just can't say, I'm 110. There's an example of a Massachusetts company that was hit with a $4 million fine because they sort of just guessed their SPAR score. Well, that's not something you should be doing anymore. You should be actually being honest about it. And having vulnerability management is going to be a percentage or points toward that SPAR score, the fact that you're doing it. So not only should it be done without compliance involved, if you need to be part of compliance, it's a great way to help with that SPAR score. Any questions on this? I know Richie's on the call. He's one of our senior engineers when it comes to cybersecurity. Don't mean to put you on the spot, Richie, but do you have any comments on the SPAR score and vulnerability scanning? Oh, we put Richie to sleep.
No, I'm here. I'm sorry. I was talking I'm in quality. I'm with Dave. I'm sorry. I was chatting with him. I missed the question.
Yeah. Do you have any comments on the SPAR score? How much of a SPAR score is vulnerability management?
I don't know the amount of points exactly off the top of my head for that particular domain, but it's several points. If I had to guess, probably maybe 10-ish or so. Again, your point is you can't really accomplish it without the vulnerability management. And another thing to keep in mind of vulnerability management, if you're running the reports and you're putting the reports in for evidence every month and you're not doing anything to remediate them, that's when you're talking, forget about the SPAR score, forget about everything else. If you ever get a breach and you're showing this vulnerability for the last 9 months appears every single month, and the evidence for your remediation does not include anything towards that, you're probably going to get a significant financial fine for that. So that could be, again, it's not just for a particular compliance framework. It's also for cybersecurity insurance and just overall, protecting yourself for the legal system for any type of breach.
Yes, good point. So you get a great tool like this in place, but you're not using it to remediate the patches because you don't want to deal with the inconvenience of patching. You really haven't helped yourself. So you're right, Rich, on that. Thank you. Sorry for putting you on the spot. He had no idea I was going to do that, but he's one of our cybersecurity engineers at TAB that is out there in the field. Any other questions?
I just want to say thanks to Dave Equality for letting me participate, even though he has me for the day for doing cybersecurity, but he let me participate in this lunch and learn. So I just want to say thanks to Dave.
Dave is the best. We appreciate Dave. So again, it's important to have vulnerability management as part of your cybersecurity approach. It has to be more systematized. You just can't turn on Windows and have it automatically do the updates. It has to be something that is scanned. You have to actually have an idea as to what you have for software that could have vulnerabilities that you're completely unaware of. From the silliest software you could have loaded on your computer to obviously the operating system, not knowing is part of the problem. And again, the example of LastPass being breached because of an engineer who was off-site who had his Plex. A Plex server is basically a multimedia server that wasn't patched in his own house. The bad guys got through that into then the network of LastPass and then created that huge breach. So you need to make sure your systems are patched. You need to make sure your people's systems are patched. And of course, if you have engineers working remotely, you better tell them to patch their stuff too. Guess that's the moral of the story. But you can't get away from it. I know we do know as IT people it's an inconvenience. At least with our vulnerability tool, you'll be able to at least know your situation, as Richie mentioned. You're going to have these monthly reports to show how many critical vulnerabilities are still outstanding on your network. And of course, if you ignore that, that could be at your own peril. But at least you'll be aware of it, and then we can schedule windows to capture those things, update them, and protect them so that you're not going to be dealing with some old version of Adobe that's going to bite you. I know keep throwing Adobe under the bus, but we hear it a lot about Adobe and the critical vulnerabilities that were always part of Adobe. But there's plenty of other softwares out there. It could be your ERP system. It could be anything that your people are running on their computer that needs to be updated. So putting something formal in place, getting a monthly report, having the tool do the updates will definitely improve your security. Maybe even reduce some of your cyber insurance costs too because you put it in place. So I can't promise that, but I can tell you these forms that are coming at us as far as what you should have in place and what you don't have in place is growing and growing. I had a customer actually who installs glass. He happened to install glass for a sub base, and they wanted him to be CMMC compliant. There's no CUI in installing glass, but you should have seen the forms that asked him whether or not he had the proper cybersecurity tools in place as a glass installer. It's coming for everybody, so we all have to be more vigilant when it comes to our software. Any questions you're getting, Rebecca, or no?
No questions on this end.
Okay. More information, obviously, you can go to our website. We'll have some information up there. As with everything at Tab, very low cost as always. Anything with Tab is 30-day cancellation. We don't lock any of our customers into long-term contracts. Most of our competitors do. We wonder what they're so afraid of. We're happy to offer your services as needed, very a la carte, and it's very transparent. Same price no matter who you are. We don't size you up and try to extract the most out of you. We try to just offer our services at the fairest price we can for everybody. And we think that works the best. Feel free to reach out to me at clientsuccess@tabinc.com if you have any questions. And thank you for being part of our Lunch and Learn.